I knew that I had no choice but to face something because I was sick and tired of the life I was living. It was tiring, it was exhausting. And that was the moment I started to look backwards, because that's the only way to find out how you got here, right?
Did you feel like that was rock bottom for you?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Johnny Lawrence and welcome to Life Talk, the self-development podcast. Today, I have an incredibly inspirational person. It's official. She's definitely inspirational because she's won an award and everything. I'm talking about the ITV Inspirational Women of the Year Award for 2019 and the founder of Free Your Mind, which is a childhood domestic violence and trauma support non-for-profit organization. I'm talking today with Natasha Benjamin. How are you?
Hi, what an introduction. I'm really good, thank you.
Yeah, how's your day been so far? It's
been good. I mean, it's our 9th birthday today, or anniversary. Some people call it anniversary. And I probably need a moment to sit and take stock of that, because I didn't actually realise it was today. Things have been so busy that I just sort of ran into the day. And the reason why I realised it was, that date today was because Company's House emailed me.
That's not there must be a better way to receive that news.
Do you know what I mean? Like, one way to keep you humble, like Company's House just emailed me. I was like, we're 9 years old today. So
that's amazing. Sorry, that's really tickled me. That's amazing. Oh wow. Oh, okay. Oh, so no one else in the organization realized either.
No, I know. We're just like we're just working away at the moment, so we just completely forgot.
I think that speaks volumes of how hard you're working, though, and what you're doing is important work. So I think that's probably all over a good sign, and good on Company's House. I don't think I've ever said that or will ever say that again. So,
I know, right?
So what else is going on? I mean, I can only imagine how busy you must be. Talk about that just to start. I mean, with lockdown, there are statistics to say that domestic violence is on the up, which is a horrible thing to have to say and to know. So what have you what's been your experience of that in recent days? So
the lockdown has had a huge, that it's no news to anyone that it's been it's had a huge effect on domestic violence. The numbers are on the rise. More and more people are affected, children are affected, and we have seen that firsthand. As soon as we went into the first lockdown, we had a huge surge in referrals to our service. In fact, it was a 900% increase in referrals. 900, and oh my goodness, it's been a lot. We've had to learn to adapt quickly because of that. We've had to make lots of changes. Me personally, I've had to really come into my own and really step up and say, all right, you've created this service now. you better make sure it's doing what it needs to do. And I've gone through a spurt of growth along with the business, and yeah, it's been a lot. I probably need, when this is all over, I'll probably take a holiday to think about.
I'd say that sounds like it might be well deserved. Yeah. Are you managing to look after yourself in all this? Because it sounds like you're quite key and quite vital to the whole process. Are you looking after yourself?
I wasn't at first, because all I wanted to do, and this will always be my narrative, the children come first, no matter what. If it's taking us away from the children, then it's no good. But equally, what I've learned is it's really important that I have water in my well to be able to provide children with theirs. And so there's a child doesn't want to hear from a burnt out therapist or a counsellor, and so it's really important that we take care of ourselves. And so that is the lesson that I'm learning, kind of late, but better late than never. So instead of, when I get free time, I don't think, let me, I used to sit on edge and think, let me check my emails, or let me do that thing that I could do now because I've got free time. Instead, I sit with it and just enjoy the moment of free time. You know, this is what it's like. Okay. And don't do anything with it.
That's lovely. That's lovely. And then you get pesky podcast guys like me getting in contact with you, stealing your time away. Sorry.
Do you want to do this?
Oh, that's nice to hear. I mean, there's that saying of the aeroplane, isn't there, where they say if the masks come down, fit yours first before you can attend to others. And I think that's a well-used analogy for something like that. And you know, you are so vital to this service, and it's an important work that you're doing. So it's nice to hear that you're looking after yourself. So good for you on that one. And
thank you.
And yeah, make sure it's a really good holiday.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Anywhere in mind? Hawaii?
Can you actually send me like a message when lockdown's over to remind me to take it?
Yeah, I'm going to make this a soundbite, just this bit, and I'm just going to send it to you.
Because yeah, I know what I'm like.
Yeah, I can imagine always finding a reason to continue to work, I'm sure. Okay, so well, let's start there, shall we? Let's talk about Free Your Mind as an organization. Like for those that might not be aware, what exactly do you do?
So we are a not-for-profit support service that provides counselling and therapy and some other support types services to children affected by domestic violence, and we are specific to children affected by domestic violence. I should add that we work with children and young people, so we start from the ages of 5 to 25. And there's a reason for this, because you know, it's quite a new area of where people are offering support. I mean, we've been doing this for 9 years, but when we first started out, there was nothing for children generally, but there was definitely nothing for children who had grown up witnessing domestic violence and were now older, but carrying that trauma around with them. And I was one of those people, and so I thought, there's no way that I'm going to leave someone who may be an adult, you know, classified as an adult now, without that support, because it's equally as important. And so we have quite a wide age range for that reason.
I love that distinction you made there, because you know, in domestic violence, you know, conventionally people jump straight to a man hurting a woman, let's say. People want to help the woman, they do, and that's right. There's nothing, that's not wrong, but the fact that you focus on the children, I think, is really important, because it's surprising, isn't it, how easy it is to not think that way. You assume that if you look after the mum, maybe that the mum can look after the child, but you know, having some experience in that area, that's not always possible. The mum is just about keeping herself together in occasions, and there's a lot of fear and damage, both physically and mentally. So
and children experience domestic violence in a very different way too. And again, when I say this, I'm not taking anything away from the adults that do, of course. I'd say the person in the relationship that's being abused, but children have a very different experience because of how you know, how they look at the world at that age. You know, for someone in a relationship that's been abused, that's their, you know, partner abusing them, and that's painful. But for the child, that's their mom and dad, or you know, stepdad, or whoever it might be, or stepmom or mom, and that is terrifying, because a home is a child's safe space. Their parents are their safe people, and there's nowhere safe for that child at all. So they're you know, this is developing their lens on the world. This is how they're starting to look at the world. My mom and dad can't keep me safe. Who's going to do that? And so it affects every area of their life. Whereas with adults, there might be somewhere outside of that relationship where they look and can see that there is safety. But for that child, that's not going to happen.
Oh, that's heartbreaking to hear. Yeah, and certainly adds a new level of perspective to my own experience. So thanks for that. But I mean, so you offer a service to help children. How do you help them? What do you do for them?
So we provide a number of different services, from talking therapy, CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, counselling. We provide behavioural mentoring, and then we provide some holistic type services such as meditation, tapping therapy.
I hear a lot about that these days.
Yeah, breath work, because we feel like there's not a one size fits all, guide to healing for any specific person. So, when we meet children, because there's more of us now on the team, upon meeting them, we decide what's going to work best for them. For example, some children, the teenagers tend to want to sit and talk. They don't want to, they don't want to do drawing and tapping and things like that. But with the younger children, they might want to sit and draw things out and do some tapping, perhaps some meditation. It just really depends on the child. We have to develop that relationship with them first, and then we can make a good decision on what they need.
And how do you go about that? So, a child comes into you needing support. How do you go about identifying that? Because that must be quite difficult to do.
Yeah, because you're an absolute stranger, and after coming out of being in a situation where your safety has been, violated for them, when they, I recognize that straight away. I'm a stranger. I've got to establish a rapport with you. I've got to establish a relationship and trust. So, the other thing about our services, everybody has lived experience. And so we aren't, in some therapeutic services, they say that disclosure of your own experiences isn't, like, you shouldn't do that, because sometimes that can make your client start to, that can make them, it can make the client think that you're making it about you, essentially. And I get that, and I think we need to be very careful. At our service, it's not that we start to go into, I went through all this, and start telling them the story. We make it clear that we are a service provided by people with lived experience, so they know from the outset that they're talking to somebody who is not only trained in different therapies, but also has grown up in the same situations, and that offers an extra layer of understanding. At that point, or later down the line, the child might feel like they want to ask questions about that, which might help make sense of some of their own experiences, and they can. But initially, we make that known. And then it's just about getting to know the child. My thing is that I do an activity called To Understand Me, You Should Know. And it's things like my friends are, tell me about your friends, the people you like, who you hang out with, your favorite, things down to your favorite color. What are you into? What do you like to do in your spare time? What irritates you? What makes you happy? I really want to find out about the person that I'm going to be spending the next 6 to 12 weeks with. And I think that's really important. If you don't have that relationship, I don't think the therapeutic relationship is going to really work. It's not really going to work, and I don't think you can always successfully help a child process their trauma without having that first.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that you're not just asking for the positives as well. You're also saying, what irritates you, because that's important to know, because you could step into that territory quite easily, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
But I love what you said about that experience as well, because I've come to realize that education is very important. Obviously, you have to have training in knowing how to deal with these things. But if you have that education and then you add that experience, that's where the real wisdom comes. And that's where you can really build that bond with somebody. I know from having done some charity work with children before, and I've spotted children, and I've known I can't tell you how, it just did. You can just see it and you can understand
Right.
it, and you can see the way they hold themselves, and the words they use and the tones they use, and the behaviors, and it's a sad thing to see. And if that's your way in, if that's your way of helping that person, then I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think it doesn't make it about you. I think it's just a really lovely way to link up and connect, isn't it? So how do you find that helps them? You know, so you do these different types of therapies, you work out who the children are, and how to be around them. How does this, did you say 12 weeks?
6 to 12 weeks.
6 to 12 weeks.
It tends to always be over 6 because we're dealing with trauma, and you cannot process trauma in 6 weeks.
You'd be lucky if you tell someone about it in that time.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. You know, by 12 you might have even scratched the surface sometimes. So often, you know, luckily for us, we're not CAMS on the NHS, who we often do work with, but so we have some flexibility on being able to extend times if we need to. But how we do it is, to be honest, in that process of getting to know each other, things start to come out, and that's kind of the trick, actually. Especially when it starts to come to things like what makes me happy, what makes me angry, and then you start to you know, things might come up like, it really makes me angry when people don't listen to me. It really makes me angry when my mum tells me to go to bed. It really makes me angry that social services are in my life. It really makes me angry that when I see when my dad you know, does this, or when I think about my dad, or when I see my dad, and we use those moments for branches for conversation about what's, you know, why we're really here. And so it's happening without, you know, the child really knowing about it in a way, which I think works better, because there is that, you know, the stigma around getting support. You know, is there something wrong with me? You know, people being scared to talk about it. And so if it naturally comes out, that's probably better.
Yeah, I mean, that's just such a beautiful way, and such a natural way to learn to understand someone, even not in this capacity, even just generally, because
Right.
you find in sort of, unfortunately, when you're an adult, and I'm still working on being an adult, but
Yes.
but you know, you might go to a conference or something, and you know, someone might ask you about you, but actually they just want to tell you about them. and actually I've become really good at letting people do that, you know, so but I think it's lovely that you're listening, and you're letting them, you know, that might be the only time in that poor child's life that anyone's actually sat and paid them attention in that way, and
Yes.
that is because of a whole set of circumstances that are difficult to understand.
Yeah.
So what do ultimately they get from that at the end? What have you seen, sort of, what sort of transformations, transformations probably a bit strong, but what sort of things have you seen that you've been really really proud of your work, and really, really glad that you've done what you're doing?
Gosh, you know, so many. I mean, we've seen hundreds of children over the years now, and you know, the ones that really stick with me are the children that, when I first meet them, you know, understandably so, you know, they're guarded, they're closed, they don't want to let you in. And, you know, I think I feel like I'm quite approachable. catch me on the right day, especially at work. You know, I'm quite approachable and nice. And but even that can't, you know, that can't, you know, won't change anything for a child sometimes, because they're just like, you know, don't care. Who are you? Don't want to talk to you about things. Why should I talk to you about, you know, my deepest, darkest thoughts and feelings and experiences? And you have to really chip away. And, you know, I've had my moments where I've thought, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to essentially, you know, not the word crack, because I don't like that word, but to be able to
support them,
to really, or be able to open them up so they can let me in and help them. And but it
It's
always
never been safe, I'm
happens.
sure, is it? In the past, it's probably never
It's
been safe to do that, you know?
it's never been safe to do that, and that's why we spend so much time building rapport, so they can get to know who we are first as well. Because you know, that's the other thing. This isn't we don't build relationships here where it's just, you know, you and the therapist, you and the therapist. No, you're sitting with Natasha, you're sitting with Shah, you're sitting with Kenny, you're sitting with Alfie, and you're getting to know them too, because I think that's a fair exchange. I think it's only fair. And so by doing that, you build a genuine rapport, not just a therapeutic one. And you end up talking with these children about all sorts of things that they're into. And that works really well, because they're sitting and the messages that they're getting is, this person really cares about understanding me and getting to know me, and really caring about my voice being heard. And so I think that makes the differences to getting to that end part of the journey, where you see that child really open up, and they're talking to you, they're telling you what to do. I've had that before.
I don't doubt that for a second. I can imagine, actually.
Yeah, we're going to do, I don't want to do that in this session today. I want to do this. And I love to see that. I love to see when a child becomes a lot more assertive in their sessions, because you know, I never say it in my head. I'm like, yes, their confidence is growing, you know, they're starting to understand their own opinion and voice, and they're using that. And that's when, you know, you're getting somewhere. You start to see small differences in their behavior, especially you know, with you. And so that's great. But in a specific sense, there's a young person I worked with for about a year, who I finished with not so long ago, actually. And I remember when I first met this young person, it was one of those moments where I thought, oh, yeah, this is going to be hard. And not that anyone is easy, but I thought, oh, this is going to be difficult. And again, it was just building that therapeutic, that relationship over time. And we actually managed to have 2 sessions in person before we went into lockdown. And so the entire therapeutic relationship existed on Zoom.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were able to make huge amounts of difference through that. And one of the keys that I tend to use a lot with childhood trauma, especially with teens, is inner child healing. One of my favourite things to do is to get, you know, the older person reconnected to the younger person in them, because essentially they're always in the driving seat anyway. We're not always consciously aware. You know, they're making, you know, they're looking through the lens at the world. They are, you know, they're looking out for danger, they're looking out for everything. And it's for you as the adult version of yourself to connect with that younger person and guide them and say, hey, I'm here, you can trust me now. I'm going to, you know, take my hand and I'll lead you through life. And that's one of the things that I think was key with this young person, is the inner child healing, and getting them to reconnect with the younger part of them that had been incredibly traumatized. And in the inner child healing process, the younger version of them doesn't always want to trust them yet. You know, you go in, we do the process, which is through starts as a guided meditation, and the younger part of them says, no, why should I come with you? Look at everything we've been through. Look at the decisions that you've made since. It's been, you know, it's essentially been a disaster. We've been too hurt, it's too painful. And so it takes a long time to keep going in there and trying. And eventually the younger part of you says, I see you making better decisions now. I see you doing the right thing for us. I see you thinking of us first. And then they join them. and they go along with them in the journey. But that's something I had to do for myself first, which I use a lot now.
That is truly wonderful. I love that. I hear a lot about inner child stuff. I've never been through that myself personally, but I've spoken to many that talk really highly of that sort of stuff. So that's quite a nice little seamless link there. Well done. Because I'm going to go on to ask you if you'd be kind enough to share a bit about yourself. I mean, it sounds to me like there's a reason why you went on to sort of form Free Your Mind. And does that come from sort of personal experience? You sort of touched on it earlier on.
Yeah.
It does. Would you be kind enough to talk about that? I mean, feel free to say no, but
no, it's fine. I mean, it's something that, you know, it's why Free Your Mind is what it is. It's why Free Your Mind exists, because it happened to me first. You know, I grew up as a child, witnessing, but not only witnessing, but getting caught in the crossfire of domestic violence and abuse, and it affected every area of my life, and affected you know, the really important years of my development as a child, you know, from the age of 7 till I was 11. And that, you know, at the time, you don't know what you're going through. This is just your life, and you don't realize till later, do you? Yeah.
You don't know any different.
You don't know any different. This is your normal. You think, you know, to an extent, you think everybody's got something going on like that in their lives. We just don't talk about it. And so I went through domestic violence. There was abuse as well. I went into care. That was really traumatic. And it wasn't till I got into my, you know, I'd managed to get through certain parts of my life that would have made others on the outside think, it's fine, she's fine, you know. Got my A-levels, got into university, got a job, you know, it's ticking all the, you know, the assembly line of boxes that, you know, people like to see us do. And
I think we're very good at that. Trauma survivors are very good at making everything look good from the outside.
Right. we become chameleons because we have to an extent, because we have to adapt to our environments to keep ourselves safe. So we are going to do what looks
but it also stops people from asking questions, doesn't it? You know? Exactly. Although I think I was probably one of those leaky buckets where it was always coming out somewhere, and people thinking, well, why is she, you know, why is she like this, why is she doing these things? But, you know, I couldn't answer them either, because I hadn't become consciously aware of my experiences yet. And I used to talk about it in, you know, such a strange way when I think back. You know, I used to say, you know, my mom used to get hit by my stepdad, and I never really acknowledged it as my own experience. I never. In fact, Johnny, a moment that I laugh at now is realizing that I'd been in care. So I'd been to university, got a job, a nice corporate job, moved to London, and I was mentoring young people in care. And we were having this conversation with the children about being in care, and just something clicked, and I went, I remember this time I had to go and live with somebody else. And the room went silent. and one of the leaders there said, "You've been in care?" And I was like, I've been in care. And that was the moment I realized I'd been in care, because social services and all the other services that were around at the time, they never spoke to me once. They must have spoken to my mum at times, but no one ever said to me, "Natasha, how are you feeling? You are going to live with somebody else." It just all happened. I was just taken along like an accessory. Sorry, I just find that I've never thought of it like that before. You know, like that you were sort of, you know, respectfully herded around. You were never consulted. You were never, you were never explained to. You were just for your own safety moved around. Yes, in essence, it was a good thing, but you know, the trauma comes from not understanding, not knowing, having no sort of stability.
Right.
That's an amazing perspective. That must have been a heck of a moment to realize that like that.
It was such a shock, and you know, that those small realizations opened the doors to my trauma revealing itself. You know, I said it was like a leaky bucket with little things coming out at you know, at different times where it would show itself. But that was the moment where I really realized you've been through some things that you might have to start facing. From that moment, things just unraveled and unraveled. I started partying, drinking loads, unfortunately, and that became like a numbing thing for me, because, you know, that opened a door for me that I wasn't looking to open.
Unfortunately, alcohol, whatever we want to say about it, in that context, it does work. It does.
Right.
It's not a very healthy way long term, but in that moment, it does what you need it to do. Unfortunately,
absolutely, which is numb out memories and pain, and that's what it did for me. And it also allowed me to create a personality and character for myself, because I just became this party girl that everybody liked and everyone wanted to be around, and that was great. No, you know, I didn't want to acknowledge that sad person, that sad, anxious person that was essentially the real person, the real part of me. And it just got to a point where I couldn't keep that up anymore.
Tired.
I went out, I got spiked, and the realization of waking up the next day, you know, being spiked is a really strange experience, because when you're drunk and you wake up the next day, you have a hangover. When you've been spiked, you don't have a hangover, but you've been acting like a drunk person. And so you wake up the next day and everyone's got these stories about you, about what you did, what happened, and you're just, and you feel, you know, pretty normal. And it's such a, that was really traumatizing, because I didn't know it had happened.
Oh, what a violation as well. That must have been horrendous. Oh, man.
And what really made me sad at the time was I had a few, you know, so whilst I'd built this really fun reputation for myself, I'd also become a bit of what my friend called a Pied Piper, where I'd accumulated all of these friends and people around me, and they weren't necessarily good for me. And when I was spiked, there was a few people in my friendship group at the time who made me feel very ashamed about it. How did that happen to you? Do you know what you were doing yesterday? No, I did not. That's why this is such a shock to me. It just floored me, and it made me feel like rubbish, to be honest. It made me feel like crap. And I remember going to the hospital because someone told me that, you know, you should after an experience like that, and getting so much empathy from the nurse, and I thought, wow, this is so different to the experience I'm having from people that are supposedly, you know, they should be caring about me. And it was from that moment that I started to look at my life and think, what is going on here? How did I get to this point? And so the trauma was coming out, and I ended up losing my job. I had a manager at the time. It was a really rubbish time, Johnny.
Yeah, sounds it. Sorry, if you feel like this is difficult, please don't, you know, I don't want to bug you out for the rest of the day.
No, it's fine. I've told this story a few times, so it's fine. But
just take care of yourself on that.
So what happened was I had a manager at the time, and he was bullying me. And I had to go through a tribunal, and it got upheld in my favour, which is good. But I was just depleted. There was just nothing left to give. And
that's a lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot
it was
to go
too
through.
much.
Yeah, it
All
was.
that
Yeah.
going on, and I ended up having a breakdown. I had a breakdown, and I ended up leaving that job, going back to live with my mum, back in Birmingham.
I had a suspicion you were from Birmingham.
See, you might be from Birmingham, not because of your accent, but I saw something about Birmingham, but you're not.
No. I'm originally from Hertfordshire, but I live in Cornwall. So yeah.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah, come and visit.
I will when I'm allowed.
Yeah, well, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
That's fine. So yeah, I was back at my mum's house, jobless, everythingless. I because I wasn't the party girl that I used to be anymore. I had lots of people dwindling, falling away, because I wasn't available on a Saturday and Friday night anymore. And I sat there and I thought, how the hell did I get here? How did you get here? And I knew that I had no choice but to face something, because I was sick and tired of the life I was living. It was tiring, it was exhausting. And that was the moment I started to look backwards, because that's the only way to find out how you got here, right?
Did you feel like that was rock bottom for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I was, there was a point in that journey where I had looked up ways out.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. But what's interesting about that, Johnny, is when I looked, I have a screenshot of the search.
Goosebumps.
Yeah, I have a screenshot of the search, Johnny, that I did, and it led me to a page that said, instead of killing yourself, why don't you kill off the life that you're not happy with?
Wow.
And I thought,
how powerful.
Right. I could have stumbled across anything. The internet was far more rogue in a way back then to what it is now. And, I could have come across anything, but I came across that. And, it said, instead of killing yourself, why don't you kill off the life that is, the life that's causing you all this pain?
Yeah.
And that would, it caught me at the right moment. It was the right thing to say. And I thought to myself, that's exactly what I need to do. Yeah. I need to kill off this life that's causing me all this pain. I need to essentially kill off the things that are hurting me, kill off the situations that I'm in, and start to really look back and figure out how I got here. And that was the moment I realized what I'd really been through. I started to think about the domestic violence, all the experiences that I'd had, my childhood, the abuse, being in care, all started to come out. But in a way, it was really sad. It was really upsetting, but it was also affirming, because it gave all the madness, made all that madness make some sort of sense.
Yeah, no, that it gives you, it sort of validates how you feel in a way, doesn't it? Which is important, because you perhaps wasn't, there were people around you at one time that wasn't able to do that for you. And as a child, one of those things that we need so much as children is to be reassured, to feel safe, to feel loved. And, in some cases, obviously, I don't know the specific situation, but certainly for me, no one was able to do that. And that's the way I like to believe it, because otherwise the other way isn't so good, is it?
No.
I don't think anyone doesn't. I like to believe that nobody has children to be a bad parent on purpose.
Yeah.
And being a parent is very hard. I can speak to that, certainly, especially through lockdown. So, wow, just taking that in is just, what an incredible person you are. I mean,
thanks.
Sorry, just to sit here with you now and to hear that moment of rock bottom and how you got there. Do you ever take the opportunity to be proud of yourself?
No, not enough.
If I ask you that, because I wouldn't want to upset you or anything, I'm pretty sure you're strong, but are you proud of yourself?
I am, but I'm quite uncomfortable saying it. And that's something I've got to work on. Yeah. I actually, Johnny, to just be really open with you. I went back to therapy last year just because, you know, things had changed so much with lockdown and, you know, the extra pressures on me. I thought I need to process what's going on here.
Need support.
And the other thing I had to process was a really strange reaction to winning the Inspirational Woman of the Year awards.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had a really weird reaction, which was, you know, it really builds you up. It wasn't a process where you find out you're nominated, you win the award. There was this whole kind of short X Factor style build up, as you know, TV producers like to do.
Yeah.
You know, we were whizzed down to ITV and that was lovely, but then there was that part of it where, you know, we were put out to the public to vote. And that made me feel really uneasy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so, you know, how that affects the mind, I started to think, oh my God, I've got to win this. But I'm not going to win it. And what does it mean if I don't? What does it mean if I do? And it just sent me into a bit of a spin. So to the point when I did win, I was absolutely shocked.
I think you can see that in your face. There's a clip on YouTube, isn't there? And you can see on your face, like, you know, I'm not sure you could get up at one point. You were like, ah.
That's what they said. ITV actually said to me, we were scared you weren't going to get out your seat.
Yeah, it did look like it, I have to say.
Honestly, I prepared myself, you know, this is one of the things that my anxiety does cause me to do, is I prepare in advance for every eventuality. Yeah. You know, and that has its positives and negatives. And in this instance, I prepared for the other girls to win. So when my name came up, I was like, are you kidding me? I'd prepared for something else.
Sorry, bless you.
So I had a really weird reaction. So instead of being like, woohoo, I've won, I was like, what do I do now? Oh. And I imploded for about 2 weeks, not only because of that, but because there was this extra attention that I hadn't prepared for, and more pressure. And unfortunately, I think they do things differently now in hindsight, but ITV didn't really safeguard me very well for that either. So I was essentially just out there getting emails, newspapers, all sorts of things coming at me. And I was like, I don't know how to deal with this. This has never happened to me before. I'm not a famous person. And
frankly, it doesn't sound like you really wanted to be either. It's just sort of those things that sort of happened.
Yeah, I've learned from that. I thought to myself, if there was ever a time in my life that I wanted to be famous, I know I definitely don't want to be now. Like that small bit of exposure just showed me that it's too much.
Yeah, I can imagine.
No thanks.
Yeah. So I feel like I sidetracked you a little bit there because
the proud thing.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's just in that moment selfishly, I wanted to hear you say you're proud of yourself, because I just think that, you know, it's so funny to me. I've met, and I'm a very positive person, and I don't talk negatively about people. I don't see the point. So I'm not, but I meet a lot of people who are very proud of themselves and maybe shouldn't be quite as proud of themselves.
I hear you.
And then I meet people that are just cracking on like you and never stop to be proud of themselves. And I think, you know, if anyone should be proud of themselves, it should be you. To take yourself from that moment, and obviously I'm keen to know what happened after that. But that story is impactful, you know, all the things that happened to you early in your life, then to go through that the later years, to get the job, to lose the job, to come home and to find yourself at rock bottom, only to know where you are now. It's just, wow. Yeah, I just got a lot of respect for that, for what it's worth.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My therapist said something similar.
Well, there you go. You know, and I think that's what it comes down to, isn't it? I mean, I describe my sort of experience of hypervigilance as somebody that went through some pretty nasty stuff as a child, as like the hotel lobby syndrome. It's like when I go to a hotel, and it's something my wife has been lovely about, she's like, right, I'm going to go and have a spa treatment while you just do your thing. I'm like, cool. And I'll sit in a hotel lobby and I'll just watch. And it's this feeling of not being safe, not being familiar, and having to understand my surroundings. You know, like I'm the kind of person that, you know, if I'm going to do something somewhere, I need to get there early. You know, I need to know where everything is. I need to know where, and I don't know why. It's just that it makes me feel a certain way. And when I don't do it, it incites anxiety, you know.
Right.
So say we were going to meet in a cafe in London or whatever, I'd get there early, and you know, and I'd want to know where the door is and all that sort of stuff. It's odd, you know. So
no, it makes so much sense, Johnny, because it's how you have. That's what you did when you were younger, Johnny. That's what you had to. That's what you learned.
Yeah.
That I need to check out my circumstances, my surroundings, to ensure that I'm safe, because perhaps that you weren't given that opportunity at first, and that's what you learn to do as a result. And you know, we all have things that we took from those experiences that we do now. You know, my planning in advance is the thing. You know, must make sure. You know, and so those are the gifts and the curses that come from it.
Yeah, I like a bit of gift and curse, Jay-Z. Don't mind that. But it's learning. I think one of the things that I've come to understand just recently when it comes to trauma is, and the listeners have probably heard me say this a few times now, but it's that acceptance. I never knew that was an option. I always tried to change, I always tried to fight, I always tried to do something to influence things, you know, control things. But actually, there's a heck of a lot of peace in just accepting what can be accepted, you know.
Right.
And that's a lovely feeling, and it's not always my go-to, you know. And actually, when I think about it, I go, oh, thank goodness. I can just accept it. You're actually at a really nice spa. Let's go and have a nice time. Let's not worry about danger, because there's probably no danger, you know. But anyway, somehow we're talking about me. I'm not sure how that happened. So
oh no, I loved that. I think that's important, because that's real. That's the reality of what can happen to a person as a result of trauma. You know, having to navigate your surroundings first. You know, with some children, I call that the watchtower. You know, where you know, the light is always out, scouring the beaches and the area to make sure there's nothing unsafe around or nobody's lost or anything. And that's
give me goosebumps. That has that's a really lovely analogy. That's really nice.
You've got a lighthouse now, and that checks out your surroundings to make sure you, and I'm sure those around you, are safe. And I think that's so important. And you know, if anyone's listening, I think that's important.
yeah. That's the other part of it, isn't there? It's about potentially reframing some of those things that are very easy to think are negative because they come from a negative place, they come from a negative situation. But actually, there's some of that stuff that then makes it better at, say, you and I understanding people, relating to people, listening to people, helping people. And without them skills, we can't say whether we'd be as good at that as we come to be, you know.
Exactly.
So how did you pull yourself from what you describe as rock bottom, and it doesn't sound like a very nice place to be? How did you pull yourself from that to, you know, although you didn't have a very good experience after winning the Women of the Year award, how did you go from that to creating this wonderful not-for-profit organization, and from rock bottom? How did that happen?
Oh, so how did that happen? That's a good question. So what happened? I know what happened. Of course I know. So
you were there.
I was there, wasn't I? So so what happened, Johnny, is I created a blog. Now, there are some, again, laughable moments in this creation of this blog, because I had really gone from this, you know, this extrovert that was partying all the time to this introvert that just didn't want to talk to anyone. You know, I wasn't answering the phone, I wasn't out, I wasn't talking to anybody. But
was that the point where you decided to kill the life that was making you unhappy?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. At that moment, I actually did a huge, I mean, some people fell away naturally, but there were people that I had to to essentially face and say, look, we can't be friends anymore. We can't continue. It's just too painful. My part played in it as well. I'd built up some really toxic relationships and friendships because they were based on nothing but partying and just toxic behavior. And I knew I couldn't take that with me because it was part of my pain. It was causing me pain. And that was horrible. Some people took it really badly. Some people were like, well, you this, you that. And I was like, okay, well, you've made it a bit easier, even though that wasn't nice.
That's one way to look at that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done.
So there was my life was stripped bare, basically. And so, looking back at that now, I realized what opportunity that gave me, because the possibilities from starting from scratch is anything, absolutely anything. And I created this blog, and the reason being was because I didn't want to talk to anyone, and I have really terrible handwriting, so I wanted somewhere to type. And I thought this blog was private, and it wasn't. It was, I hadn't clicked private, I left it on public, and I was writing away, and suddenly I started to get messages back from people saying, oh, finally someone's talking about growing up around domestic violence, growing up like this. I didn't know anybody was. I didn't realise we could. I didn't, just didn't know. And from that moment, I realised there was, because when you are going through something that isn't talked about enough, you think it's just you. And that moment, I realised it was not just me. And but also what I realised was that there was not any support for any of us, any of those people. And I thought, well, I've got nothing to do. and I feel like I need to do something about this, because it's just not fair that we go through all this, we go through all of those experiences that shape our world, shape the way we look at the world, and essentially, ruins our lives for many, many years. And then there's nothing out to support us. And I thought, well, I'm going to do something about that. And so I started, I had nothing, I wasn't working. I was back at my mum's house. And so I started with a Facebook support group. And then from that, from that support group, I was contacted by a magazine called Red, and they asked me if I would go to a workshop called You Can Heal Your Life. And there was a lady there called Ursula James, and she was a coach, and she was talking about how we can heal our lives, and she is also a hypnotist, so she was taking us through all these different all these different things. And the first thing she stood up and said was, I love myself. And it was really interesting to see the reactions in the room. Some people were like, oh, I can't believe she's saying that, she loves herself, stuck up. And I sat there and I thought, wow, I can't believe she's saying that. That's amazing. How did she get there? And so from that moment she had me, I thought, wow, you can say that out loud, and it doesn't appear, it doesn't appear like really over the top. And I know you're not being conceited. It feels real. And so she started to talk about how we can essentially heal our lives through the small things that we do every day, visualizing our optimum self, which is just the person we really want to be on the inside, and how we can get there. But then what was really interesting was at the end of the workshop, I went up to her and I said, Ursula, it's so amazing. What a brilliant workshop. I'm currently, I've had a breakdown and I'm doing all these, I'm working through all this trauma. And she stopped me and she went, no, you're none of those things. You are, she said all these complimentary things that I, just didn't really believe at the time. And I said to her, I want to build this service for children affected by domestic violence. And she said, take my email and, you know, email me and you know, we can talk about it some more. And I thought, you know, she's bobbing me off, she won't email me back. I emailed her and she emailed me back and said, I'm going to introduce you to some people. But she said, I want you to know something. Meeting you wasn't a mistake. It wasn't it wasn't a chance, it was fate. My real name is Natasha Benjamin.
What?
I know.
Oh my gosh. I didn't expect that. Plot twist.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh my God, what?
Oh man.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I was totally meant to meet you. And
Yeah.
you know, she introduced me to some, you know, to services like Anxiety UK, some other domestic violence services. Unfortunately, they weren't that interested in the child stuff. They are now, but they weren't at the time.
No.
And
No.
and but from that moment, I realised I was on the right path. You know, I had confirmation, and so I decided to do a marathon, like a half marathon, not a whole marathon. And
yeah, I'm not crazy.
I don't want to lie.
Yeah, one of your mates will put you a blast if you do that. They'll say, he didn't do a marathon, don't that lie.
Do you know what I mean? You'll have all these comments under the podcast. She's like, so it was a half marathon, and I got everyone to sponsor me because the idea was I was going to create a website from there to talk about, you know, domestic violence and how it affects children, and the, you know, the plan that I had, which was to essentially create a service to support children, make sure that their voices were heard. And so that's what I did. I did my half marathon, raised £500, created a little website, and from there I got in touch with a service called Hestia, who is now one of our partners. And I said to them, you know, it was just let me throw it out there and see if they, you know, see if they'll take a chance. And I said, you know, I've created this service for children that are affected by domestic violence. I'd love to come in and help some of your children. And they said yes. And so from there, I was going in, working with all the children, supporting them, you know, and creating a service that was not only trusted, but also I started to have, you know, feedback on how it was going, you know, and also I had case studies to prove it as well. So this, you know, that was how I was building my service properly from scratch, and it just grew from there. You know, from the refuge, from working in schools, you know, to self-referrals to the service, and then it was working that way for years, until I won the Woman of the Year awards. And that, you know, whilst I had that adverse reaction for the service, it was huge, because then we started to get, you know, real investments in terms of funding, which meant that just before the Woman of the Year award, I had opened a space where we were doing the therapy from. So we had that. But then when I won the Woman of the Year award, that's when everything grew a lot bigger, and I was able to build the team and go from essentially 2 to 7.
Wow.
Yeah, very quickly. And that's how we've been able to really help as many children that we have, especially with this 900% increase that we are experiencing as we speak. And yeah, that's the shortish version.
Wow. You could just continue to blow me away. So I'm still reeling from the fact that her surname was Benjamin.
I know, right?
It's spooky sometimes when the way the universe makes things happen, you know, like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I suppose if you can take a positive from a negative, you know, you went through the experience you went through because you were strong enough to take it. And so you can give back to many, many others, you know, and I think that it's just I think you're. I am very lucky in getting to interview people. I quite often feel that I'm speaking to someone who's doing exactly what they should be doing, and that's how I feel in this moment. It's just a wonderful story, and it was an absolute honor to hear it today.
Oh, it's been lovely to talk to you. It really has.
No, it really has. It's just you know, obviously it's a topic that's close to my heart anyway. And I'm pretty sure it's close to most people's hearts, to be completely honest. But yeah, I can, you know, there's certain experiences that you speak about that I can close my eyes and I can see them exactly as you describe. So you know, unfortunately, we've been going for quite a while, and it's felt like it's been minutes, to be honest. But yeah, so we'll come to an end if that's all right. I mean, hopefully we'll get to speak a lot more in the future anyway. I'd like to believe this is a nice connection here.
100%.
Tell people where they can find you, and do you allow people to sort of donate and stuff like that? Do you have a way of people doing that or anything?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, great.
So where you can find me and Free Your Mind. So Free Your Mind on all social media is Free Your Mind CIC, you know, just add the at the beginning, but Free Your Mind CIC everywhere. And for me, it's Tasha K Benjamin on Twitter and Natasha K Benjamin on Instagram. And in terms of donations, you can donate directly through the website. There's a donate button and page, but we're also in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign, because, you know, with this 900% increase, funding hasn't increased. And that's one of the scary things about lockdown, is how it's adversely affected so many services that are, you know, not for profit or charities, and we're seeing them closing. And to me, that's frightening, not only just because of what I've built, but for the children, for those children
needed more than ever, isn't it? You know?
Right, for all those children that are still waiting, we need to find a way. And if you can contribute anything you can to this crowdfunder, I would be so grateful. You know, anything that people can. Anything.
And where's that? Is that I'll find out on social media, will they? Or
on all social media. If you go to my Instagram profile, it's in my link, and also on Free Your Minds too. And Free Your Minds constantly doing those fancy swipe ups, so you can use that.
You're so much like me. It's like, I don't know how they do it. And do you have, is there Free Your Mind website as well?
Yes, so it's www.freeyourmindcic.com.
Great. And is there donation stuff on there? Because there may be people that don't have social, so I still want them to get there. And actually, we can put the link in the show notes, actually, that we can do that. There's a donate page, and on the home page, there's something that comes up about donations, so you won't miss it. Amazing. Natasha, thank you so much. This has been such a lovely experience, and I'm really grateful for your time. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Anytime. Take care.